You never know what may be hiding in your attic. Seriously, when was the last time you were up there? We often put away things from our past that are left for years without anyone remembering they were missing. This was the case for one Reddit user who found something pretty mysterious lurking in his grandfather's attic.
Hello, wonderful people. I'm Scott Leffler for WonderBot. And here is...
He found a chest in his grandpa's attic, and in it was something extraordinary.
Before we begin, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more amazing videos.
In January of 2014, a Redditor we'll call ASW discovered a mysterious chest in his grandfather's attic. The chest looked like some sort of medical bag from a video game. And as mysterious as it was on the outside, he wasn't at all prepared for the incredible contents it held. The chest appeared to have some sort of strange inscription on the back, which really piqued the Redditor's curiosity. He posted an image of the chest online with the Asian script. When translated, it was found that the script was, in fact, Japanese. A commenter who spoke the language said the words translated in English to Damage Control Gas Aid Kit. Another user who saw the photos insisted that he knew exactly where the chest came from. As a World War II reenactor, the poster was positive that it was a Japanese squad-level field medical kit from the 1930s. The kits were air and watertight, which is why the chest hadn't aged much at all. The mysterious chest became a bit of a project for some users on Reddit. Determined to find out where it came from, they pooled their resources and called everyone they knew. When combing through the chest, ASW found a note stuck on the inside, which helped another user date the chest. According to the user, S7 3 stairs meant Showa 7 3rd month. In other words, the note was dated March 1932. Showa refers to the ruler or emperor Hirohito, who ruled Japan from 1926 all the way to 1989. This chest is a relic of that era and is about 80 years old. The chest was in amazingly good condition, so it's no surprise that its contents were equally as well maintained. When ASW opened up the chest, he saw a bunch of packages stacked in layers. Whoever organized this, we're guessing his grandpa, had some serious organizational skills. Among the several layers were boxes and pill bottles covered with Japanese text. One commenter suggested that ASW take one of each and report back the results. Of course, expired medication is unlikely to have any real effect, though it'd be remiss not to mention how dangerous it'd actually be to consume medication that was sitting in a box for 80 years. The medication inside this box could be so different from the medications we administer to patients today. It really could have been anything. Methamphetamine, otherwise known as crystal meth, was commonly given to kamikaze pilots during World War II before their suicide runs. It's also possible that it could have been cyanide. Spies needed an out if they got caught, rather than submit themselves to inhumane treatment and torture. The neatly stacked boxes inside the chest didn't really offer much information. ASW had to open up the boxes to see exactly what was there, and his discovery was totally weird. Upon opening up the boxes, the Redditor found a really strange vial filled with a brownish-purple liquid. One commenter joked that by now ASW was probably tasting colors. It tasted purple, he said. Ingredients: sugar, purple, water, wrote a user named Tom Selleck PL. Tom Selleck PL was actually sort of insightful in his joke. When translated, the text of the vial read, gum, glucose, liquid. In other words, it was sugar water, plain and simple. During World War II, and even in hospitals today, sugar water is administered through an IV to cure dehydration. In fact, when sugar water wasn't available during the throes of battle, World War II medics sometimes used coconut water, which we consume today as a healthy source of electrolytes and vitamins. Once the Redditor opened one of the boxes, it was time to move on to the pills. These pills could have been anything from meth to cyanide to caffeine and vitamins. Of course, it turned out that there was nothing sinister about this medication. It was merely an 80-year-old cure for a common headache. The pills turned out to be a sodium salicylate mixed with caffeine. This is close to modern-day aspirin and added caffeine like Midol. However, we doubt here that many women were in the battlefield during World War II. This non-steroidal, anti-inflammatory drug tests, pain and fevers, and period cramps. There was more than just some aspirin in this World War II era damage control gas kit. According to Redditor Kevwilia, who was translating the Japanese text through the post, the box also contained some serious sedatives. This pill bottle contained bromizavol, also known as bromovalururea. This over-the-counter Japanese medicine affects the nervous system and sensory organs. It also produces some sedative and hypnotic effects that can be used to treat anxiety. Of course, if you suffer from a gas attack, you'd be more than a little anxious. Bromizavol is a perfect solution, but it also had many more uses. Bromizavol was commonly used by troops during World War II, and the U.S. used it to treat shell-shocked soldiers returning from the front lines. The drug is no longer used because it's way too powerful of a sedative and would greatly reduce a soldier's usefulness in the field. In other words, it's not a great medication if you're a medic treating patients as bombs are going off like the chest suggests. Bromizavol was also used on prisoners of war. It was known as a truth serum because when soldiers were under the influence, they would reveal information they normally would not. Unfortunately, its use for these purposes was discontinued because it was found that you could coerce people into recalling false memories. Anyone who's ever been to a dentist and got a cavity filled is familiar with Novocaine. Novocaine, the brand name of the medication called Procaine, is a brilliant local anesthetic. Odds are if you needed this during war, things were pretty bad, which is probably why it's labeled in both Japanese and English. Liquor Novocaine sterilisatus is actually the Latin form of this product. Novocaine was developed by Alfred Einhorn in 1905 with hopes of treating surgical amputations, something soldiers, unfortunately, often had to go through after being wounded in battle. Of course, it turned out that since World War II, Novocaine was found to be better suited towards dentistry than amputation. No emergency medical kit would be complete without a flashlight. Among the medicine found in the mysterious World War II emergency medical chest was a torch. The 80-year-old batteries look a bit like they've leaked acid everywhere, so we're hoping ASW didn't try to put them in a flashlight. The Redditor was wearing gloves though, so he wasn't harmed by the fact that the battery acid was leaking all over. Turns out that flashlights really haven't changed much since the 1930s. This chrome version is clearly a utilitarian model designed to be able to withstand a beating. In 1932, much to the dismay of heroin users everywhere, disposable plastic syringes were not a thing. They hadn't been invented yet. So any intravenous kit was a bit more complicated. The intravenous kit found within this damage control gas aid kit does not look like something we'd have ever wanted to use. It's dirty and there are rust-colored stains which could be attributed to the fact that it's 80 years old, or maybe because it was used. Is it blood or is it oxidation from the metal plunger? We don't really know, but it's sort of gross. It's important to note that during this time, doctors did not treat deadly blood-borne illnesses like HIV and AIDS. The first layer of the chest was filled with common medications and things that would be helpful day to day. The second layer had an even larger assortment of bottles, jars, and packages. ASW removed these one by one and had Redditors guess what they contained. Unfortunately, this go-around was a bit harder. Kevwilia, who'd been translating the entire time, couldn't read most of the labels. He could only identify what was on the bottom row: 2 bottles of kerosene, a mask, medicinal carbon, and a loofah. Some of the bottles even appeared to be empty. One of the boxes within the chest was labeled digitaminum. This was another Latin name, which translates to the drug digitalis. This medicine is extracted from foxglove flowers and saved many lives during World War II. Digitalis, or foxglove, is most commonly used to treat irregular heartbeats. For example, if your heart is beating out of control because war is really terrifying and hectic. This helped thwart congestive heart failure. It literally stopped a heart attack in its tracks and helped normalize a panicking heartbeat. Foxglove is a very fragile herb. The cardiac glycosides that made the medicine so effective degraded rapidly if the plants were not handled with extra care. We're guessing 80-year-old foxglove would have no effect. Just when you thought the contents of the chest couldn't get any more mysterious, ASW pulled out a little black box etched with mysterious Japanese characters. The box puzzled Redditors, who were still waiting for ASW to stumble upon crystal meth used in kamikaze pilots or something else that was scandalous and sinister. Who knew war supplies, more or less, remained the same throughout the last 80 years? Aspirin, local anesthetics, even a loofah, everyone was still waiting for the good stuff. Seriously, where were all the things used to treat nerve gas poisoning if this was a gas aid kit? Upon opening the little black box, ASW found a note taped to the lid. According to Reddit's apparent resident Japanese translator, Kevwilia, the note said, adrenaline, novocaine, atropine. Adrenaline's effect is similar to the methamphetamine Redditors were waiting to find, but hardly as interesting. It wasn't used for kamikaze pilots, but rather to fight fatigue and increase soldiers' alertness. It was also used for things like amputations and treating for nerve gas poisoning. A high dose of novocaine or morphine, which helped with the pain, but was a pretty heavy drug, would be counteracted with adrenaline so the soldiers could still function. Out of all the drugs found by ASW, atropine was perhaps the most telling of its time. The medicine was really strong and mainly used to treat poisoning by nerve gas. The chemical compound that makes up atropine is found in Jimson weed, which can induce horrifying, life-changing hallucinations. This was not the case for atropine in a medical sense. It's essentially the opposite of adrenaline and can slow the heart rate and decrease saliva production during surgery. Primarily during World War II, it was used to treat types of nerve agent and pesticide poisoning, but also helped slow the heart rate when it was necessary. So, ASW found a note that said the box contained a number of drugs used to help with nerve gas poisoning. That's something we could expect from a box labeled Damage Control Gas Aid Kit, but things got stranger from here. Inside the little black box were some weird glass vessels that no one on Reddit knew anything about. Users thought it was possible that these bulbs were used in cupping therapy. This ancient Chinese homeopathic treatment loosens muscles, encourages blood flow, and sedates the nervous system. Since the kit also contained medicines used to slow heart rate, it's possible that this was offered as an alternative treatment. Cupping is also known to relieve back and neck pain and stiff muscles, as well as cure a variety of ailments like anxiety, migraines, and fatigue. These ailments were common among World War II soldiers. The final layer of the box had some suspicious-looking packets. These turned out to be nothing more than medical masks. If you were subject to leagues of sick soldiers as well as toxic gas, you can bet these masks were an asset. One Redditor also believed that this box contained caustic soda, otherwise known as sodium hydroxide. This could be crucial in gas attacks because it absorbs moisture and carbon dioxide. It was often impossible to prevent things from getting wet as a medic on the field because you were subject to whatever weather was currently happening. At least you could use caustic soda to help keep things dry and sanitary. There were a couple things Redditors thought were missing from the kit. There were so many specific medicines that were commonly used to aid during amputations, yet there was not a single physical surgical tool. There was no bone saw or scalpel or no antiseptic. Redditors also thought, though they could not verify, that one of the bottles was labeled opium. If this was the case, the lack of a bone saw is even more shocking. Morphine is the most active substance in opium, and it's also a very powerful painkiller. This was frequently used in World War II for amputees, but also for victims of nerve gas poisoning. Perhaps the kit was truly made for specifically treating victims of nerve gas and not at all for general medical treatment. Nevertheless, the unboxing was a success, an interesting trip through world history.